Welcome back. Our focus tonight, as around the country, various suggestions coming in, traders groups saying that this is the time to actually reset the India-China relationship, reboot it in 2020. Can we boycott the dragon? Is it feasible? Is it futile? Will it hit China where it hurts, or will it end up hurting India more? To debate this, joining me tonight, I'm joined by Nilesh Shah, who of course is the president of the National Association of Mutual Funds. He's also a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council as a special invitee. I'm also joined by Rajesh Sahni. He's an angel investor and the founder of GSF Accelerator and InnerChef, a food tech company. Thank you both very much for joining us. We'll also be joined by K. Ganesh of Big Basket. But Mr. Shah, let me go across to you first, because you in fact have been pointing this out now for a long time, that India-China's trade deficit is unsustainable, and this is the time. You said this before the pandemic, that India needs to actually reset this whole relationship. Do you think that the tragedy that happened with the killing of 20 of our brave soldiers means that this must happen sooner rather than later, immediately?
So actually, since we can't go and change the past, we might as well start from today. Last year, our trade deficit with China was about $60 billion. If we take into account routing, which might happen from countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, the number could be as high as $70 billion. As a percentage of GDP, this is the highest trade deficit with China by any other country in the world. We can't continue to buy goods from China and continue to pay in US dollar. There is a need to reduce this trade deficit. And clearly at this moment, when there is popular mood to boycott Chinese product, we should take all the advantage of that momentum and replace made in China goods with made in India goods. It's not going to be an easy task. It can't happen overnight. It will require years, but we must make a beginning.
What do you think we should do in terms of the policy scale to do this beginning? We know, of course, that the government had a few months ago tightened FDI, foreign direct investment from China needs now approval. Also that we've seen in the last 24 hours that there's been BSNL putting a hold on some contracts, a railways contract cancelled. Do you think that after a week or so we'll go back to business as normal, or should the government actually lead this or seize the opportunity to do this?
So there are certain goods which we have to import from China. For example, a lot of our pharmaceutical intermediates come from China and we can't stop it suddenly. But there are many things which we can reduce importing from China. For example, electrical lightings. There is a large consumer market over here. So we'll have to analyze and divide all our imports from China. Something which will require a lot of years to replace. Something which can be replaced today, and we'll have to use all Sam Dam Dand Bhed to reduce China's import. For example, I can ensure that there could be import duty or anti-dumping duty on Chinese goods. There could be delays in clearance of Chinese goods at Indian ports. There could be encouragement of global companies, instead of sending from China, why don't you make it in India and get access to large market? There will be multiple things which we'll have to do, including encouraging domestic manufacturers and global manufacturers to set up base in India to compete against China. And as I said, this is not an easy task. It will take years, but we must make a plan so that eventually our balance with China becomes sustainable, it becomes reasonable. There is another thought also possible. Just 1 second. We can ask China that if you want to continue to export goods to India, we'll make excess payment beyond our normal deficit in rupee terms. You can continue to own rupee. This was the arrangement which we had with Russia earlier. We can demand the same thing from China. If they are so desperate to sell in India, they may agree to this terms.
No, those are three very valid suggestions, actual action points that could be done. But let me just bring in the other perspectives on this. Let me bring in Mr. K. Ganesh, promoter of Big Basket, Portia Medical and Fresh Menu. Now, of course, Mr. Ganesh, when there was that big Alibaba investment into Big Basket, it was celebrated as a, good for India, foreign investment coming in, that this was good for India. Do you think that has all now changed? Should we be now looking at Chinese investments with suspicion? Should we be looking at boycotting? Where do we find a balance between what's good for India and also ensuring that we don't actually end up damaging a larger public or national interest?
Firstly, I think what is happening is alarming and has given rise to these reactions across the country, which is very understandable and justifiable. My heart goes out to people who have been martyred, the challenges that we are facing. But I think at a macro level, country level, we should distinguish between reaction and response. What we need is a strategic response by the country. We need to act. This is not something which we can ignore. So we need to take action. But it has to be smart, deliberate, considered action, as distinguished from a reaction of individual and people. At the ground level, I don't want to buy Chinese. I want to buy Indian good. If the price difference is small, or if I have alternatives, I would do that. By all means, I will do it. People should do it. Those are all reactions. At the country level, we have to engage with China. We have to respond to this. We have to take action at various levels, at military level, at diplomatic level, at economic level, trade level. There are multiple. China is, fortunately, unfortunately, it's not a choice. It's our neighbor, a large trading partner right next to us, and our economies are intermingled. Not just FDI investment, be it supplies that come from there, what goods we sell there, all of that is there. So we need to understand, we need to differentiate and engage at every level. Now, the point is, we cannot have a knee-jerk reaction. We need to see what is going to be the long-term impact and how do we address it. If you ask me, an investment by companies as a minority investor without control of the board, without control of the management, money into an Indian company or Indian economy is good for India. It helps in creating jobs in India. It helps in giving companies giving discounts to Indian consumer. It makes products more affordable, life more easy. Therefore, there is nothing wrong in it. I am distinguishing this from a situation where, like, one pharma company based out of Hyderabad was 100% acquired by a Chinese company.
Right.
Then that has become a Chinese company. A majority investment ownership by Chinese is a different matter than a minority investment in a startup. Similarly, if you take a strategic sector, be it telecom, be it infrastructure, be it defense, then any foreign ownership, any foreign investment, any foreign influence is a no-no, China or any other country. Therefore, we need to protect ourselves against it. It's a job and responsibility of the government and the country to protect the interest completely. But try to get Chinese investment, minority investment, some money into a delivery app so
you're
that
saying
people can get cheap food. I mean, that is not a good. It's a knee-jerk reaction.
So you're saying let the government decide the larger policy areas where Chinese ownership will be perhaps strategically not wise, but for things like, as you said, Chinese food or Chinese food app or any other areas, not such a problem. Let me bring in Mr. Rajesh Sani here, but for perhaps another perspective. So, for instance, do you think then reactions to say when you ban a TikTok app is not the same level of, say, when you look at whether Huawei should be in 5G apps or whether the Chinese companies should be allowed into 4G trials? Where do we actually draw the line between, say, what knee-jerk reactions, or as what Mr. Nilesh Shah says, that this is the time to perhaps seize the opportunity to look at long-term changes, because anyway we know the India-China trade deficit and imbalance doesn't make sense for our economy?
Look, Sonia, the most important part of India-China economic relationship will be the digital economy, the tech economy. Anyways, as you can see, even in US, 25% of our 5 trillion economy will be the tech economy. Now we have to choose a path. One path takes us to become the digital slaves of Chinese big companies. And I'll come and expand a little bit more on that. Another path makes us co-owners of a brilliant future and in fact get a play in the world market. So if you now look at this digital tech economy, there's one part is app economy. You know, this is where TikTok comes in, but this is where also 30 Indian unicorns come, out of which 18 have some ownership from Chinese, and I believe in 3 to 5 there is a substantial ownership. And I agree with Ganesh there that minority ownership in this app economy is good, you know, so long as there is no board control. And this is what Chinese also did with US investor ecosystem. They allowed US investors like Sequoia or IDG to have a play in the Chinese app economy. app economy became big, but they never allowed these platforms to be owned by US or any other entity. Tencent and Alibaba are Chinese companies. And we have to ensure that autonomy remains with the big Indian startups. The other part of the ecosystem which is troubling is the mobile, electronics, network ecosystem. And there again, there are two parts. One part is the mobile phone ecosystem, and that's where the biggest trouble India has, that 80 to 90% of the components put into our mobile and 70% of the ownership of mobile phone is today with the Chinese phone companies.
Exactly.
And that's a big opportunity that India is missing, and India is handing over its future to the Chinese. If we work smartly with Taiwanese, US, Japanese, and also South Koreans, we can create an alternate supply chain to China. And that is very important, because future you will deal with multiple devices, not just the phones, but VR devices, health tech devices. And for that you need a component ecosystem that we lack in India.
No, and
that's where China is owning the world. One more point, yes. And I wanted to come to the telecom side. And that's where Huawei and ZTE, because of their cheaper prices, telecom companies prefer them. But there are media reports that they have links to CCP and they have links to PLA, and I don't know, no one can substantiate. And that's where Indian government needs to be extra careful, because that's where the biggest security implication for Indian establishment is. So overall, I believe that India has the talent, India has the market, India has the software prowess. Now we can bring hardware to India. If we play it smart, for that we need 25-year roadmap. It's not going to happen in next 2-3 years. We need 25 years roadmap to build prosperity to India.
Said on the show the other that the Chinese think 100 years roadmap, so 25 years roadmap. But Mr. Nilesh Shah, we also have to look now at the timing, because India is uniquely placed with, as we saw with the coronavirus pandemic, there's already globally a move or distrust of China. Companies are moving out, but already we're seeing reports that companies are looking at going to Vietnam. And India is not emerging as a natural alternative for companies to move out of China. We saw also a few months ago President Trump leading the way with announcing trade tariffs, trade wars with China. India, because of its relationship with China, of course, neighboring and very different relationship, reads much more sensitively on this. Do we need to be much tougher? One, in attracting investment, relaxing red tape, cutting bureaucratic regulations to get the companies to India from China who are moving out, and also looking at perhaps imposing tariffs if need be?
So undoubtedly, our domestic savings at 30% of GDP can help us grow at 6, 7, 8%. We need to augment our domestic savings with foreign capital so that we can grow in double digit. Second, foreign capital also brings technology and its own ecosystem, and that can help accelerate growth. I would just like to give example of Vestas, which is a wind turbine maker. They took 18 months to set up their factory in China. When they came to India, they could better it to 15 months. Now, we must have done something right with Vestas foreign direct investment. They didn't shift out of China into India. But if we can give them a platform where in 15 months their factory can start producing machines, certainly that will be an incentive for them to move out of China to India. So what we did with Vestas in terms of land allotment approvals, environment approvals, and so on and so forth, we must do it with every single company which is coming to India. Second, while we are focused on companies coming out of China to India, we must also focus on companies which are already present in India. For example, Samsung is India's one of the largest consumer durable company, operating in India for many decades. Their turnover is about $12 billion. It's an unlisted company, so I'm making a guess based on available information. Their turnover in Vietnam is $62 billion. Vietnam is 1/10 the size of India, and there Samsung has 5 times higher turnover. Certainly, we want companies to come out of China to India, but we also need to concentrate on companies which are present in India and support them so that they can flourish here, grow here. We were equal to China in 1980 in terms of GDP and per capita GDP. Today, they are 5 times bigger than us. They became manufacturer to the world. We were left behind. We can reverse that position in 2020. Again, as my co-panelist mentioned, this is a 25-year journey, but we must make a solid beginning.
I'd like to bring you Mr. Ganesh, because of course there is the other argument that we know now that China has flooded Indian markets with things like cheap toys, fairy lights. Even at Diwali, Indian idols of our gods are made in China. So the irony becomes that have we perhaps, whereas we look at Chinese big investment, makes sense for India, makes sense for jobs, but this indiscriminate opening of markets is something which is bad for India, that we need to really relook at this aspect. Also, however, there's the other view that many of our hawkers, many of our poorest are selling these cheap goods. They make more of a profit on it. So in a time of globalization, free markets, can India now close? Is Atmanirbhar India meaning that we become a more inclusive India or a more closed India? What's your view on that?
No, I think, see, some of it is governed by WTO and what tariff measures we can actually put in. So I am not the expert on that, but I think people will get unnecessarily upset. Countries will get upset when we increase duties, when we put tariffs and all that. Therefore, there we have to tread as per what is the international agreements that we already have that will get accepted. But I don't think we should get too deep into it. I understand the emotion and reaction right now to shun and move away from Chinese object where there are choices. But like you mentioned, whether it is the hawker making a profit because of Chinese good, or because a poor child being able to play with a toy because it is available at a price at which the child can afford, or a LED light or a diya or a Diwali cracker, that is what it is today. Over a period of time, if you are able to make cheaper alternatives, it is fine. Otherwise, that is, in my opinion, that is okay. Right? Individually, if you want in the Diwali, don't want to buy a Chinese LED light, pay double the price and buy alternative LED light, please go ahead and do it. I would do it myself, because I'm very upset and with what's happening, and I'm very concerned. But that is not a country's response. From a country point of view, I think we should be more measured and we should think long term. See, what's happening is, you see countries like US, for example, are already taking it up against China. China is getting huge backlash because of the way they have handled information on corona and the 5G and Huawei. There is enough people targeting China as it is. So our trying to be fastest to pull the trigger on China on economic thing is not really necessary. But smartly, we need to see what's happening, what other countries are doing.
But is it perhaps an easy way to do militarily? But just to ask, sir, because of course Alibaba also invests in Big Basket and Chinese companies in so many of our Indian unicorns, as Mr. Sahni just said. Could our Indian unicorns have got that same funding from other investors? Would it actually have slowed down Big Basket and other unicorns if you all didn't have Chinese investments? So do we need to factor that in as well?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. See, 5 years back, 10 years back, there was a policy that we are not going to take any Chinese investment. Would these companies have got money from somebody else? Sure, 100% would have got money from somebody else. Reliance Jio has just proven that they can raise more than 100,000 crores from non-Chinese investors. So it's not that China is the only investor, other investors are not available. Okay, right? So we could have got it, we would have got it. Maybe we would have got it slightly lower valuation, would have taken slightly more time, maybe 10% lesser amount. All of that is there because the total pool of capital would have been lesser. Right. But we are not dependent, everybody would have got it. But more important question is, why should we do that? Because that money has been used in India by Indian entrepreneurs to create jobs in India, to provide services in India. Why would I want to do that? Except for strategic, important, critical sector like Rajiv Sahni mentioned about telecom and others. That's the real criticality that is there. The other point that is there, which is very unfortunate, we have talked about it even earlier, is unfortunately Indian capital just does not come in. You see Indian investors are not risk taking. It pains my heart to see companies like Flipkart, for example. It was US investors who came into India, invested billions of dollars, took away multiple billions of dollars. I would have loved to see a Tata's, Birla's, Infosys, Wipros having invested that money what Tiger Global invested and taken out the money and enjoyed by all the shareholders of these companies, which are really Indians. Unfortunately, it does not exist. Currently, the situation in Indian companies is that they are all debt ridden. Most of the companies are reeling under debt. They've all taken debt. So there is no capital available.
Exactly.
So
I think
the choice is not there.
I think so. I think the larger point is that we cannot look at avenging the military dispute, our deaths of these soldiers, just by looking at, say, boycotting. What are the larger options available? What is the immediate response needed? It's a very wide debate, many challenges ahead. But thank you so much, all of you, for joining me with your perspectives.